quite the talent he is. Proper chatterbox yada. If you're keen, it'll be brilliant. Today, we're going to keep it simple. I'll bark out a basic command and you watch. Keen to know? He'll set your tail wagging. Does mine, hence why I'm backing him. Right then, Wookie here. Do take a seat, won't you? Give us your full attention while we listen to my pal, Yada.
Well, as you can tell, Wookie's endorsement comes with serious supervision. He is here to make certain that we do this show properly. This is going to be another episode of Shabuwah. This is the upcoming harvest and the harbinger of the time of Israel's troubles. It's hard to imagine that God could have gotten this prophecy any more precise than he has. With all of the things that have gone wrong on behalf of Israel these last several years, they have really come to a crescendo at this point, with Israel doing all manner of harm to itself. This time of trouble where God says it's going to be worse than any time in the history of the world, and certainly of the Jewish people. Going to be worse than the Holocaust. God says that 2 out of every 3 Jews are going to die. This is no kidding around. This is really serious stuff. And God wants his people forewarned. It's also going to be a time of tremendous war. And that war will be waged within Israel. There'll be more jihadists flood into Israel than, well, upwards of 1,000 times worse than what happened on October 7th. Of 2023. And you know, on October 7th, with 4,000 jihadists in tennis shoes, the IDF was worthless. For 12 hours, it did nothing. And Jews died. They were kidnapped. They were raped. Their property was stolen. And now the barrage is not going to be $25 Hamas rockets or a 2-bit outfit that is able to marshal maybe 2,000 people with guns while the rest were just run-of-the-mill Muslims. This next attack is going to be coordinated by Iran with thousands upon thousands of very sophisticated warheads, cluster missiles, drone swarms, and a army and militia that collectively will combine to provide upwards of 4 million troops. This is what the prophets reveal between the 2nd chapter of Yoel and the 13th chapter of Yeshaya, Isaiah, that speak of this day. So you should know what the time of troubles is going to bring. God says, if it were not for this, which he is not responsible for, it's Israel has brought this on itself. Your response to Gaza was, as I had foretold, so wrong-minded that you turn the world against your Jews. You're the pariah nation. You're completely isolated and become a vassal of Donald J. Trump, who is Rahab. He is the literal embodiment of Satan. And the prophets have foretold and forewarned you of this, and yet you're ignorant to it. It's like you don't really care what the prophets have said. And so you're completely ill-prepared for what's coming. And that's a crying shame. But time of trouble becomes official the 22nd of May, 2026, about a month from now. And there's also a harvest associated with this date. On Shabuwah, could be the next Shabuwah, the 11th of June of 2027. Either way, both Shabuwahs will be celebrated, and it's going to be a very rough time for all but those who are harvested, gathered in, and brought home on this day. So now we're going to turn to another of the prophets and consider what he has to say about this remarkable time. That prophet is Yeshaya, Isaiah. And as we do, we read, "Now presently, therefore, an Ed, a restoring witness to the enduring testimony regarding the means to return, will be providing evidence pursuant to eternity for as long as time permits, to people of every ethnicity and culture, so that they can be gathered, to the community being brought together and assembled. God says, I'm going to bestow this individual, him, masculine singular, as a gift. As an authorized counterpart, as a prince, publicly and openly promoting the truth, as a conspicuous messenger. Excuse me one second. My yellow lab has gone back into biting her paws mode. He is going to be an authorized counterpart, this restoring witness who reveals the truth in the end to Yisrael, is going to be a prince publicly promoting the truth, a prince, a Nagad. Why? Because he is directly related to two individuals with royal standing. Dod as king and Yahweh as God. He is a conspicuous messenger announcing what needs to be said and known, and as a representative of the royal family. He is an instructor and a teacher, providing direction, who is appointed and ordained and in charge, whose authority is not to be questioned. For an archaic and misled world of people from every ethnicity and culture who are now gathered for a common cause. Yashaya, Isaiah 55:4. There are so many prophecies regarding this individual, who is a goy, as we will hear in a moment. And it's just a crying shame that all of them are ignored by God's people and by the world. Therefore, presently, a lone goy, a non-Israelite, thank you, Wookie, whom you do not know and have consistently failed to recognize. You should read and recite what he has to say. And welcome his attempt to call you out, his proclamations. In addition, this lone goy, who is not understood or respected by you, who possesses information you fail to understand, he will be quickly brought to you and will waste no time in his intense and consistent focus on you as he pursues you on behalf of Yahweh, your God, and on behalf of the set-apart one of Yisrael, the chosen one, Messiah, the very Son of God, his firstborn, Dod. Yes, in the end, Yahweh will return to where he began with his people, with the non-Israelites. And he has to return by using a goy, because there isn't a single Israelite on the planet who is receptive to his call. There are now, but only because they have listened to this goy. That's how far you have fallen, Israel. For indeed, he is reaffirming your status. So, isn't that pretty amazing? It's the goy who is reaffirming the status of Yisrael. You know that with the two most popular religions, Islam and Christianity, they are about stealing the promises and the attribution of status as the chosen people afforded to Yehudim, And here's the opposite. This Goy is specifically appointed as a restoring witness by Yahweh to reestablish and reaffirm your status, Israel, lifting you up by shaking the tree to knock off the fruit so that you can be gleaned, preparing you for the harvest by recognizing and respecting your value. Yeah, triple nickels, 55.5. Yahweh disclosed this through Yeshaya because he wants his chosen Goy, his Nakri, his observant foreigner, Yada, to not only understand his mission and carry it out, and also appreciate what he will be up against, but also because he wants those who read or listen to what has just been inspired to consider what he had to say about, well, himself, his son, and his upcoming harvest. A non-Israelite is being used to awaken a lost world, telling all who will listen that Yahweh is reaffirming Dod's status while calling his people home. And should you question how much there is to Kara, read, and answer, well, that may surprise you. With 35 volumes currently within the Yada Yahweh library, comprising anywhere between 450 and 825 pages of translations, explanations, conclusions, and unheralded insights, previously unheralded insights, and 25,000 pages. If you were to read at the pace of 3 minutes a page, pretty fast for non-fiction material, particularly that's exceedingly well documented and dense with its base of information, and you were to devote 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, every evening, say between 9 and midnight, it would take you 365 days to complete. And even then, you wouldn't even know 1/10 of what I know. You would know 1,000 times more than any rabbi knows, but not 1/10 of what I've come to know, because after a while, after you've done this long enough, you build a base of understanding where almost every word God says resonates, reveals insights that none have heretofore seen. And that's where we are now. I so hope you come up to speed, but if you don't, you need to know where this library is, yadaya.com. Every book is free. Every episode of the Yahweh vlog is there for you, properly presented, categorized in the right numerical sequence, all available without charge, without even a request for a donation. You're free to ask questions, to make comments, to listen, to read, to learn, to grow. But you got a lot of catching up to do, and there isn't much time left. So you should not be surprised that it has taken me 12 hours a day, over 25 years, to compose these amplified translations. Most 5 to 10 passes each to keep them current, which has now essentially become impossible as we are learning at such a prodigious rate. We couldn't, in fact, the books that I'm writing right now, I'm writing 2 additional volumes of Coming Home. And the reason I'm struggling to complete them is I'm going back and rewriting them as I'm writing them. I mean, that's how fast we are learning, and so many new insights, and they're so profoundly important and relevant to today that the initial write of these books requires multiple rewrites. In fact, on Coming Home, I now have Coming Home 4. I have 3 versions. I'm currently working in a version that is about 700 pages. And the version that it was compiled out of is another 700 pages. And the first version of Coming Home 4 is about 700 pages. So all total, I've got about 2,100 pages, and the most you can put in any one book for it to be printed, even the biggest and thickest ones are like this. It's 825 pages. So there is considerable effort into this. And you really need to start reading now and listening now, because you need a foundation for you to go from ignorant to actually you're far worse than ignorant now. If almost anyone listening to this, and if you're in the first few times you've been listening to this program or have just begun to read, you're far worse than ignorant. I don't say that as a pejorative. That's because you've been indoctrinated in a culture of lies. I don't care from whence you come. If you're a Christian, the entire story of Jesus Christ is a lie. He never existed. He was created by Paul as a counterfeit of doubt. I mean, the whole thing is rotten to the core. The Christian New Testament is absolute trash. And I proved this. I'm not making this up. 5 volumes of Twistianity. Read them. It is impossible to remain a Christian after reading those books. And, if you come from Islam, Allah's not a god and Muhammad wasn't a prophet. I've written 5 825-page books, 4,200 pages, by being the first to reorder the Quran, set it into the context of Muhammad's life through the chronological hadith, and completely disproven everything about their religion other than it is a terrorist manifesto and a criminal enterprise. Not speculation, absolute proof. And I've proven that rabbinical Judaism is rotten to the core in the Babel series. We've done this for you. And then there's 9 books in the volumes in the Yada Yahweh series, beginning with creation, working through the last days. 5 in observations, soon to be 4, and then 5 in Coming Home. 3 in an introduction to God that introduces you to the oldest textual resources, the grammar, the letters that comprise these words, the very nature of Hebrew grammar, and then begin in the Torah to expose and explain it for your benefit, introducing you to the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name. All of it's there. All of it's there free for you to learn. Now, this is important because there are souls to be harvested. There are reunions scheduled. There's a wedding to plan. So Yahweh's Choder is being asked to reap the field of standing grain and then shake the receptive ripe olives out of the tree on Shabuwah and then Teruah, or more accurately, beat them out as a branch is used during a harvest. That's something Yeshaya has already detailed in the 4th through 6th verses of his 17th chapter. Now, while we will return to this prophecy and that it is among the most important relative to the timing of Shabuwah and the Teruah harvest, as well as the beginning of the time of Israel's troubles, and identifies Donald Trump as the great betrayer of Israel and specifies that Israel will soon forfeit its heart in a Islamic terrorist state. There's so much to learn from really everything that Yahweh has inspired through Yeshaya, for example. And it will actually come to pass in that day that the size of Israel will be decreased to no longer being sustainable. Then the most important place at the midsection of his body will be leaned, shrinking in size, sacrificed in a counterproductive and unsustainable manner as part of the hidden agenda of deceased dignitaries. Yes, you're going to be told by Rahab, Donald Trump, I'll protect you. I'll offer you security. Boy, you just offer this Palestinian state and I'll have your back. Well, Yahweh tells us everything you could possibly want to know about Rahab and what he has to say. Okay, you can't read the teleprompter, pal. I'm sorry. You have to. I know you want to put your nose right in there, but you're just not schooled properly on teleprompter. But God is saying that I've told you all about him. I've told you who the Torahless great betrayer is, who Rahab is. I've described his every attribute. I mean, from the details of he has goatish comb-over hair, to his man long in days, very old, to he stinks to high heaven, which is definitely descriptive of Trump, that he is a sexual pervert, that he is an egomaniacal maniac, that he is deadly, that he is deceitful. That's all about Trump. And yet Israel embraces him. So it should be like the gathering and receiving of a harvest at the proper time, towards the end, which must be cut short due to the extent of man's provocation and his anger, reaping the standing grain from the chaff in season, cutting it away so as to remove it from a vexing time of grief, thereby establishing and validating the prominent and mature grain. Then his Zeroah, the one who sows and cultivates his seeds, will produce a harvest. It shall be as one would conduct a gleaning, a secondary harvest of first fruits in the valley of Rephaim, in the midst of those destined to die, who were too set in their ways and too apathetic to exert the effort required to prevail. Yeshaya 17:5. In him, it would be in Jacob or Yisrael, or the covenant, there will be those souls who will be spared, and they will survive. In addition to the physical bodies of those who will be left behind, gleanings of those purposefully left on the vine, and in going around at the right time of the year to remove them from a threatening and dangerous situation, encompassing and striking them with a branch as a means of harvesting an olive tree. And there will be 2 or 3 ripe olives in the top uppermost branch, representing Yehuda. 4 or 5 of its fruitful and productive branches, which are separated and cut away, designating Israelites. Prophetically declares Yahweh, the God of Yisrael. That's the 16th statement, the 6th statement of the 17th chapter. So with Yeshaya interpreting the prophecies found in Isaiah, we can confidently conclude that the Choders, the secondary branch, and Zeroah, the one cultivating the seeds of the harvest, will be busy. The Katsir of standing grain on Shabuwah will commence just as Gabriel revealed 7 years prior to his return, when the treaty is affirmed with many nations. We read that in Daniel, leaving Israel vulnerable. Then in the midst of the anguish which follows, there will be a final gleaning of olives on Teruah. But more on that at another time. That's another series. In harvesting the field of standing grain and then shaking the tree in expectation that some of its fruit will let go and trust God, this restoring witness, is proclaiming that the covenant's children are valuable to Yahweh and that he is committed to bring them home. So here in the spring of 2026. Just 7 years remain. Most of them will be inhospitable. The time to discover the truth is now, and it's nigh. Seek, learning the information which has been made available about Yahweh, while he may be found and encountered. Choose to call upon him while he is near. So now or never, Israel. Isaiah 55:6. Those in violation of the standard, the unethical and immoral, the religious and political, should reject their own way, along with the evil and deceitful individuals whose beliefs, whose musings and opinions are untrue. Let him choose of his own volition to return, Shub, to Yahweh, so that he may have compassion on him and love him, re-engaging in a relationship with him. You must Shub for this to happen, return. And as our God, he will actually forgive many. Isaiah 55:7. Yahweh is calling his people home. Whether or not you are among them will be determined with whether or not you are listening and willing to process this information intelligently and respond. Are you willing to disgorge all aspects of religion and politics such that you are prepared to be part of the covenant? Will you do so now before it's too late? The killing fields await. Yehudim, now referred to themselves as Jews, have not only rejected Yahweh, you erased his name. And you plastered over his Torah with your Talmud. You've replaced Yahweh with rabbis. For my thoughts, God says, are not your thoughts, and neither are my ways your ways, prophetically declares Yahweh. For the spiritual realm is dimensions beyond the comprehension of the material realm. The spiritual realm is 7 dimensions. We live in 3 dimensions. It is an infinite increase in possibilities and opportunities and power with each step up through the dimensions. Likewise, so are my ways well in advance of your ways, says Yahweh. And my reasoning, well, it's distant from your inclinations and your opinions. He's saying you're dead wrong, Israel. The Torah is as superior to the Talmud as Yahweh is to a gaggle of rabbis who have sought to usurp his authority. Truth is a treasure. Religion is a toxin. Most especially while religious Jews claim to be Torah observant, they're not fooling anyone, including God. He is aware, as you should be, that Judaism bears no resemblance to the relationship Yahweh described in his Torah. It is based entirely on the Talmud. We have long known that Yahweh's words are like seeds from which, when cultivated, can bear fruit. Indeed, he says, just as the rain descends, coming down along with snow from the sky, they do not return there without watering and refreshing the earth, such that it conceives life and buds, sprouts and grows. When I give seeds to the one who sows, well, there's bread to eat. So shall my word be. For the benefit of the relationship, that which goes out of my mouth, God says, shall not return to me without result. it will deliver what was expected. Because without compensation, it will accomplish the relational benefits which I desire, and on behalf of those I find pleasing. It will succeed for the benefit of the relationship for which I have extended it. And yet the rabbis charge for everything, don't they? They're obviously not serving Yahweh. So Yahweh initially conveyed these seeds through his prophets, and especially the mighty Zeroah, Moshe and Dod. Then, as we have learned, he deployed a third and final Zeroah to cultivate them, removing the religious weeds, watering and fertilizing them with the Torah, exposing them to the light, while encouraging their growth. The harvests are on the horizon. The time is ripe. Now, should you wonder why Yahweh has chosen to tell his story this way, using horticultural references, seeds, receptive ground, plentiful rain, cultivation, productive branches, fields of grain, vineyards of grapes, and olive trees ready for the harvest, it is because this is the story of life and of our return to the garden. And it is told in a way that everyone, from young to old, from 6,000 years ago to 1,000 years from today, can visualize and accept. Harvests are wonderful, celebratory times when life brings life and the result is treasured. So based upon this revelation, God's witness will be successful. The last Zeroah's efforts will bear fruit. And that is why just, 4 chapters hence in Yashaya, we will be introduced to the final witness yet again, a third and final Zeroah, the Nakar, this observant foreigner, working as Yada, one who knows, because he's been tasked with the Shabuwah and Teruah harvests, so that there is a family reunion and homecoming on Yom Kippurim, just 7 years from now. So it is my hope that you are among those who benefit. Indeed, with a positive attitude, you will be brought out and withdrawn. And with the relationship reconciled, you will be guided and led to the mountains and to the hilltops, becoming worry-free, peaceful, and serene. And you will approach it, appear singing this song. Of course, those mountains and hilltops are Choreb and Moriah. And all of the trees of the field shall clap their hands, bending in a celebratory manner. Indeed, of the thorn bush, a cypress tree and noble fir shall extend. And in place of the stinging nettle, a myrtle will rise. God's restoring the earth, removing all of the toxic natures of man and what we have done to pollute it. And he is terraforming it back into the conditions experienced in Eden. Earth is going to be a protective garden again, conducive to life. He says this will be a place to approach Yahweh, an everlasting sign and a symbol which shall never be uprooted or cut down. 55:13. Now, those who choose to answer this invitation will be withdrawn, all from the toxicity of religion, and brought into the hills of Jerusalem, reconciled and radiant. Their souls will be renewed as the earth beneath their feet is transformed, returning to the beauty enjoyed in Gan Eden, that protective enclosure of great joy and tremendous satisfaction. Our journey of discovery begins with being observant. It progresses by exercising good judgment. It results in us being responsive, proving that we are reliable, and in our vindication as we act accordingly. For this is what Yahweh says, be observant and consider the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes, making sound decisions. Then engage, acting upon that which is correct and vindicating. Because indeed, my deliverance and resulting salvation are approaching. They're close and they're intimately personal. Therefore, the one who is correct about me, he will come. He will be revealed. Isaiah 56:1. Well, of course, this is reminiscent of what Solomon advised 3,000 years ago. He told the Israelites as they were gathered around the just completed temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And they were celebrating the completion of the covenant home, more commonly known as the first temple. He was encouraging Israel to be observant and then responsive, acting upon what this particular witness would be sharing on their behalf. Having studied the Torah and prophets, the writings, especially the Psalms, the Proverbs, the Nakri, observant and responsive foreigner, would come to know the way home via the Bereth covenant and the Mikre, invitations to be called out and meet with God, which Dode exemplified and fulfilled, particularly the first three. He would be correct regarding the means of deliverance, of vindication, of being right with God. And he knows what will occur as a result of what Father and Son have achieved. Listen, and you too can be part of Yahweh's family. So unless there's another Goy whose writings remain unknown, who has also identified the proper pronunciation of Yahweh's name and discerned that Dode is the Messiah and Son of God who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim as our Savior, then, well, you're now listening to the very fulfillment of this prophecy and of so many others. Yahweh inspired Yeshaya, Isaiah, to convey this promise in writing so that you would know how to proceed, especially in a world filled with so many deceitful and deadly ideas. Listen, blessed by the benefit of the relationship, joyous and productive, is the person who acts upon and engages in this. Because the Son of Man, by observing the Shabbat and by not defiling or profaning it, he is empowered and strengthened. He is enlightened and restored by it. By being observant, his hand, and especially that which he influences, is kept from acting upon or engaging in anything unjust, immoral, or irrational. Do not say regarding the Nakar, this observant son of a foreign land, the one who knows and understands through thoughtful examination and then acknowledges by being discerning and respectful, who has formed a relationship with Yahweh, something which would infer or suggest Yahweh has abandoned me, preventing me from being included as part of his family. And let not the esteemed and authorized designee say, what now? If I become a silent counselor and muted messenger. That's in the 56th chapter of Yeshaya. So Yahweh has provided additional advice. How are you going to respond? My hope is that in a world rife with irrational and immoral thought police and muddled in conspiracy theory, our message will not be drowned out by the many complainers and the critics, nor muted too soon by the resolutely political. As for the dare that was positioned at me, I'm not about to give up. I'm not going to allow this message to be muted. I'm going to continue to share it to the best of my ability. We're going to see this job to its conclusion. Now, 25 years ago, I was alone apart from Yah, and now there are many, a family, a team of covenant members all devoted to bringing this message to you. God is not going to allow his witness to be drowned out or suppressed. Together, we will prevail, and largely as a result of our Shabbat Torah study, these programs that we have turned into the Yahweh vlog, and now have well over 600 of them, all laid out for you, presented beautifully by category and numerical order on the vlog page of yadaya.com, along with every book that has been written, all free. So this is what we read next. To the contrary, this is what Yahweh says on behalf of individuals who have been castrated. Bulls are castrated, are they not? As a result of the positions they have taken as leaders. Of those who provide guidance regarding the benefits of the relationship by being consistently observant and actively attentive during my Shabbats, who evaluate and who choose to walk along the correct path in difference to me, out of respect for me, and to please me, eager to experience this with me, and who are willing to demonstrate an intense desire to learn about, to be steadfastly committed to, and to become empowered by my covenant. I will offer freely giving to them in my home and in my family and within my protective enclosure as we return to Eden. An outstretched and welcoming, empowering hand, and a name even better than the names of other sons and daughters. And I will give to him and to them an everlasting and eternal designation and a reputation which, for having shared the benefits of the relationship, will never be removed or taken away. The children of the Nakar, this observant and discerning foreigner, have formed a relationship with Yahweh. They serve him, doing so in love, with their appreciation for Yahweh's name, seeking to exist as his co-workers, engaged in the process, always observing the Shabbat, making it special and not disrespecting it. They willingly demonstrate an intense desire to learn about my covenant. Yeshaya, Isaiah 56:6. It's really the heart and soul of these books that comprise the Yada Yahweh library, is it not? It is my desire to bring them to my set-apart mountain, Moriah, to revere Yah, Moriah, and cause them to rejoice such that they are elated in the family. Their uplifting sacrifices and elevating offerings will be accepted and favored on my altar. Well, that's primarily what Doe did on Pesach, and Yada will do on Teruah. This is because my house shall be called a home of intervention and of reasoned requests and sound judgment for the entire family. Continuing through Yashaya, the 56th chapter, now the 7th statement, leading to the 8th. Yahweh, my upright one in foundation, who gathers yet again the scattered of Yisrael, those who engage and endure with God, announces in advance of it occurring, I will assemble, bringing together before him those he has obtained by encouraging them to be called out and to draw near. This is the day I have longed to witness, when those who have been gathered unto Yahweh are assembled before God. And I'm looking forward to seeing the expressions on Yah's face as he greets each new addition to his growing family for the first time. And while that is our message, and while everyone is invited, most will exclude themselves, blinded by religion, confused by conspiracy, misguided by politics. And leading the parade to Sheol will be rabbis, his watchmen, those assigned to be Israel's lookouts, protecting Yehuda. They're blind. They're all ignorant. They're opposed to Yada. They lack understanding. They have no revelation or respect. And they're clueless. They are universally dumb as dogs, incapable of intelligent speech, and without the capacity to understand or the ability to prevail. They're unqualified and incompetent, barking and howling in incomprehensible fashions, babbling Babylonian prophets, panting while dreaming, lying around, smitten with their own inactivity and total lack of awareness. 56:10. These dogs have a soul of a goat. They are stubborn, they're aggressive, and they're disagreeable creatures who are bitterly antagonistic. They never acknowledge that they have taken too much, never admitting that they're gluttonous sexual deviants, unrestrained and insatiable, wallowing in abundance. As rabbis are the highest paid clerics in the world and offer nothing but agony and deceit for it. Those tending the flock of Israel are ignorant and irrational, devoid of understanding, clueless and disrespectful, neither perceiving nor comprehending, and thus lacking the capacity to teach. They aren't Yada. All of them have turned their own way, every man over his own ill-gotten gain and dishonest advantage, without exception, without restraint. The quotation was, God is citing their thoughts and saying, come, let us consent to assemble together and agree to change everything around. That's the Talmud. That's Judaism. Let us reach for and receive the wine, drinking alcoholic beverages to remain inebriated and intoxicating. For tomorrow will be like this day, with us more powerful and important, even more exalted and wealthier, enriched through the binding nature of religion, exerting our power and influence. 56:12. Surprise, surprise. It ain't going to turn out that way. Fortunately, Yahweh is not playing a numbers game. He never has and he never will. The rabbis will continue to hold sway over millions of deluded Jews who are now just 7 years away from drawing their last breath. Yahweh's outreach is to those who strive to be right with him. The first and best of these will soon vanish on Shabuwah during the harvest. And then we are withdrawn to be with Yahweh on the Shabbat of either May 22nd of 2026 or June 11th of 2027 at the time of Yisrael's troubles, hardly anyone will notice. Yahweh's outreach through the Nakar, this observant foreigner, will continue to be directed towards those willing to invest the time to be right about him and who approach with an open and clear mind. The most devoted of these highly valued souls will soon disappear. And as that happens, the great jihad will commence. It's what's going to happen as we move through this Shabuwah, the 22nd of May, 2026, and into the next, June 11th of 2027. As a horde of Muslims will flood into Israel and the great jihad will so terrorize people that hardly anyone will notice that we have vanished. Well, this is why we directed our attention to this Asaph, this ingathering, in Yeshaya, Isaiah 57, because a magnificent miracle of godly proportions is inevitable and it's imminent. Listen. Then the right and vindicated, those who are correct and innocent, they're going to vanish, disappearing such that those who remain will not know where they have gone. No one will give it any thought, nor meaningfully ponder the implications. Loyal and devoted individuals will be harvested, gathered together and taken away during the Akaf, this ingathering, while no one makes the connection to comprehend why. For indeed, away from the presence of this evil shepherding, this disastrous calamity caused by troublesome former compatriots and miserable companions who are wickedly wrong, those who are correct, upright, and innocent will be gathered in the harvest. They will be removed and they will be received. Yeshaya, Isaiah 57:1. This is the miracle of Shabuwah. The disappearing grain. This statement, and the one which follows, is conclusive in affirming that the Ashaf, this ingathering, will be of human souls. And during the most prolific of these, the Shabuwah Katsir, those who are Sadak, right about Yahweh, his Torah, his Bereth, and his Moedim, will abad, they'll vanish. They will abad, disappear, such that those who remain will not know their whereabouts. With the use of abad, we're also afforded an insight as to the disposition of even our physical bodies, which have no value to us going forward. Since it is often rendered perished and destroyed, this suggests that our nephesh souls depart and our lifeless flesh simply ceases to exist. This is because we must shed our Bashar bodies to participate in Shabuwah. A physical body cannot enter the fourth, the fifth, the sixth dimensions en route to Shamaim in the 7th. Also interesting, Abad was scribed in the call perfect, indicating that the Sadak, correct, will actually vanish at a point in time, with this transpiring with a definite beginning and a finite conclusion. There is no nuancing this result. The outcome is presented as real and not as a metaphor. Further, the fact that Sadak is masculine and realizing that Abad was scribed in the third person masculine singular, it affirms that those who are correct, who will be carried away and disappear, belong together. The reason that Sadak is repeated is because it is the key to deliverance. This isn't about faith. This most certainly isn't about religion. There's no conspiracy afoot here. This harvest is driven entirely by Sadak being correct. Those who participate in this ingathering will be right about the relationship, correct regarding the covenant, and they will be guiltless by having relied on the Moedim. Sharing what we have learned in this regard is our primary purpose. On a planet whose inhabitants are numbered above, well, now 8 billion, with fewer than 1 in a million extracted, I think far fewer than that, on Shabuwah. The relatively few who are withdrawn will barely constitute a ripple in the sea. Some will no doubt notice their disappearance. But in a world essentially devoid of analytical researchers and diligent journalists, few, if any, will ponder the implications. Souls are invisible to our eyes and even scientific detection methods. So our bodies vanish and our souls depart. There'll be nothing to see, nothing to report. Had people been aware of these prophecies, then they would have been part of the journey. So there'll be no one left that will have any clue as to what Shabuwah represents. I mean, Twistians are looking for their rapture to occur on trumpets, Teruah. They just got hoodwinked by Paul. And most people are unaware of the process entirely. By describing this ingathering as Ish Chesed, individuals who are loyal and steadfast, Yahweh is reinforcing something I did not recognize or appreciate prior to December of 2024. It was then that around a dozen former associates, including my publicist at the time, an editor, a webmaster, and media manager, all bolted to assuage the fragile ego of a very jealous and embittered woman who was vying and crying for attention. Prior to this, I had thought that once covenant, always so. But that isn't the case. Yah was only willing to accept those that he can depend on, that he can trust, who demonstrate that they are loyal and devoted right to the very end. You see, eternity is a very long time, and God isn't interested in spending his time with those he cannot trust. Elevating to someone to 7 dimensions, they can speak the universe into a different state. That can't be allowed among people who are that fickle. Yah was reliable and steadfast, and he expects the same in us. This is the message that we learned in the garden. As further evidence of this, consider Miriam. She was called a prophet. when she led the woman's chorus for the Song of the Sea. But then she was berated by God, banished, stricken with leprosy, and subject to a final divorce for having challenged her brother Moshe, claiming that she too spoke for God. This connection between devious and conniving women then and now is one that Yahweh doesn't want us to miss. That is why he has repeated the reference to the ongoing problem of ra'ah, of dangerous shepherds. Here it is from their presence of those who are right and are being harvested on Shabuwah. We're being taken while they're left. We will be forever parting company with the Panei Ra'ah, the presence of this miserable and malignant contingent of toxic conspirators. Therefore, according to God, those who bailed on Yahweh and his Joder with so much left to be accomplished, and who then viciously turned against both, changing Yahweh's name while maligning the tree of knowledge, will be excluded from the Shabuwah harvest. And they, as irrational and belligerent as they have become, will not comprehend why. They have been left as we are Asaph, brought together, removed and received during this ingathering. But it's not our fault, it's theirs. However, they will not be alone, because the overtly political, conspiratorial, and religious prefer believing to reasoning, faith to facts. And as a result, they will remain clueless, which is as it should be. They're not redeemable. Bien escapes them. And it is by bien, evidence and reason, that we come to a knowledge of God. As a result of this fracture and what I had wrongly perceived as family, Yahweh directed our attention back to the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Chava also proved unworthy because they were unreliable. This is the reason that Yahweh caused the fall of man, only to give us the opportunity to demonstrate that we're worth his attention, that we could and would listen, that we can be trusted, and that we're motivated to make an ongoing contribution to the relationship by helping others find God, by restoring his name, by returning his son's dignity. Now, this is why we are being allowed back into the garden on Sukkah, following Teruah and Kippurim. This is why the tree of knowledge exists and why the Choder has been inspired to share its fruit. We will be afforded another 1,000 years under ideal circumstances to prepare the surviving mortal remnant to also earn Yahweh's trust by being observant and responsive, and by engaging and then proving that they can be relied upon. And therefore, he will equip and enable those who he deems are worth the risk, such that ultimately they can journey off the planet with us and explore the universe with its creator. Continuing to examine every nuance of God's timely message so that we get this right. Note that the phrase, "no one will consider the implications," was also written in the Call Perfect. This means that when the harvest transpires, we are assured that in the aftermath of our departure, there will be no cogent response at this time. Then it gets really interesting with Asaph taken away during the harvest. It was scribed in the Nifl participle. As a result, we discover that those who will benefit from the ingathering will have contributed to their own highly favorable outcome through their diligence. Further, they will be so incorporated into this harvest that they're literally going to be defined by it, becoming known as the Ashaf, the ingathered. That will be our title. We are the Ashaf, the harvested. Well, Yahweh has answered the questions that I wanted to resolve, particularly as it pertains to Shabuwah, which is why it's part of this basic program. He was not done reinforcing his point. The Sadak, correct and vindicated, will abad, vanish during the Akaf, the harvest, because they remain chesed, loyal and devoted, and are favored for being steadfast and reliable. They will be men paneh, removed from the presence of Ra'ah, a miserable time and malignant people. In addition to the mother goddesses, the world's religious clerics, political leaders, and social influencers, as well as those caught up in the nonsensical frenzy of posting away online. And everyone has made a mess of things, and from that mess is what we're being withdrawn. They will have placed themselves and the planet in an irrecoverable death spiral, led, of course, by Rahab, Donald Trump. And if not for Yahweh's intervention on Teruah in 2033, the earth would become desolate. Instead, it's the religious, conspiratorial, and political who will become lifeless. Since it's important, I want to affirm that the Ra'ah from which the right-minded and steadfast are being withdrawn are conspired of malevolent malcontents. Ra'ah depicts the degradation of judgment and leadership that is so prevalent today, and that we recognize so few operate with any degree of morality. It predicts an inverted mindset where wrong is seen as right and bad is considered good. So this suggests that Yahweh is familiar with X and Facebook, in addition to the toxic drivel that we have seen from conspiratorialists. The Ra'ah rottenness festers, the malignancy metastasizes, and such that there is just no point to the continued presence of Sadak, of a Bereth remaining here on earth during this period. Not only will the plethora of contrarian voices and adverse conditions be too caustic for us to be heard over their roar, for those who would otherwise listen to become salvageable, they're going to have to hit rock bottom. Far too few will consider the alternative, and we know from having participated previously in social media, particularly Jews, for man to consider what God has to say, they will have to despair of all hope first. And that's only going to transpire when they realize that a political or religious solution to the carnage just isn't possible. All the while, the earth will be left temporarily without a voice or a witness other than the yadayah.com website. It's only the library at Yahweh, presented at yadayah.com, and these Yahweh vlog programs, all presented there, that will reveal God's nature and intent during the years we're gone. But in due time, the witnesses will return, and they will be in direct opposition to the religious and the political as we give voice to Yahweh's last call. Therefore, our removal during Shabuwah is really best for everyone. The residue will continue to fall to the point that there are a few who begin to reject man and choose God. And while the Sadak will be given a well-earned respite, it's going to be a working vacation. It's an opportunity for comprehensive learning so that we're prepared for the stretch run to the finish line. So showing consistency, Yahweh reminds us by using the niffle stem a second time as the concluding verb, that those who are Asaph, gathered in the harvest and withdrawn by him, will have received this benefits because, well, they contributed to the ingathering. That's the nature of the niffle stem. The verb, the object of the verb, both carries out and receives the benefit. So we're also reminded that Hasadak, those who are vindicated, will be innocent. They'll be perceived as not guilty because they will be right, which means that they are correct regarding Yahweh, his son Dod, and they are all aware of what Messiah and returning king has offered and achieved. The contrast between those taken and left during Shabuwah will become the ultimate expression of right versus wrong, of devoted and compassionate as compared to malignant and maniacal, aware and engaged as opposed to oblivious and apathetic. This known, are you prepared and willing to be among the few advancing God's solution, or are you contributing to the problems as a counterproductive and damning influence? So with that question lingering, and as we recognize that the earth is plunging into darkness, to destruction, and to death, Yahweh has a word of advice, and he wants to share something that contributes to our ability to participate in this Shashaf. And for that instruction, I'll share it with you on our next Basics on Shabuwah. Thank you for listening.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.